You're on. Okay, I have an idea as to why that might be, so give me a moment. Well, I can hear you. Uh, uh, oh, hold. Me, they can hear me because. Okay, okay, we're solving this. Okay, what happened here?
All right. All right. So we're connecting back to the chat. Are we ready? Awesome. All right, great. Okay. So I should probably do all the things again. Probably, maybe. I'll do all the things again. I'll do all the things again. Okay. Can you hear us? As I type it and say it at the same time. Because I could have just said, can you hear us without typing? Candace says yes. Candace is our tech support on the other end, so we're good. All right, so thank you, Candace. All right, I'm doing the thing again. I'm doing the thing again because I'm learning and I'm doing this. Love to hear from you in the chat, but please be kind. I am your host, Karen. Oh, we're gone again. And maybe it's something about this particular screen. Since we're uh-huh. Okay, I said the other part, so I'm good. So I did that. So we're just going to be here with Carl because apparently Carl allows us to Well, that seems apropos. So anyway, so I'm your host, Karen, and today we have, oh, don't move back. Just stick to Carl. Let's get that out of the way. So my guest today is Megan. Megan, once again, tell the people a little about yourself.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
My name is Megan Hill. I'm a theater artist who's usually based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm currently up in the Catskills, and I'm originally from the wilds of the Pacific Northwest. And I go way, way back with Karen. Where we met in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
We did. So, all right, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna get started on this. So Carl Tanzler, George Carl Tanzler was born February 8th, February 8th, 1877 in Dresden, Germany. He grew up in Imperial Germany. So according to Carl, and you will hear this a lot, according to Carl, who is also a fucker, Carl said that he grew up in he grew up as royalty. He was in the castle. He was self-taught for the most part. He claims that, at maybe like 10 or 12, an apparition came to him. The Countess Anacostia von Kassel, who was how do you say it? Was like a dead relative. It was a ghost. She was a ghost that came to him and was just like, hey, I'm a countess, therefore you are a count. I don't think that's how it works. I, can't say that I'm really down on like the imperialist of Germany, but I feel like that's the thing. So one of the things that we missed from when there was no sound is if you have questions, Megan, or in the chat you have questions, please don't wait for me to stop. We'll just keep going. I don't mind answering anything that I might know about Carl. Anyway. So Carl grows up believing that he is a count. He claims that he has 9 degrees. The school where he claimed to have gone to school knows nothing of him, but Carl says he's got 9 degrees. So one of the things that Anacostia also tells him, the Countess also tells him, is that there's a great beauty out there for him, this great beauty that will be the love of his life. And she shows him this apparition of this beautiful girl with dark hair. And Carl's like, yes, this all makes sense. So he grows up with this in mind. He joins the army and he's sent off to Australia for the war. I believe it's World War I. And he's actually put into an internment camp. This is one of the few places where what Carl says is actually backed up by someone else. He was in Germany for about 10 years, even though he claims that he was becoming a British citizen, but he was really in a war camp. I don't know why that's better in some way. Anyway, it is confirmed in a separate account from Nyantaloka Mantathera, who is one of the first Westerners to become a Buddhist monk. So I guess that's reliable. So he claims that, that Carl was there in Australia buying up boats and living internment camp. So he spent a lot of time there. And when he was finally let free and sent home, his family was not doing as well. His father had died. One of his sisters had moved to Zephyrhills, Florida, which, cool. And his mother was, holding on. He then marries Doris. Doris is either, depending upon who you listen to, 18 or 31. I'm guessing she's probably close to, they're very similar ages, 18 and 31. I'm going to say that she was probably closer to 31. They have 2 daughters, Ayana and...
Huh? I was knowing the story, I was like, she's 18.
It's probably 18. So I feel like so when Carl describes her, she's very different than the apparition. I believe she was German. She was red hair or black, I think red curly hair, and just not what he was, just oh, this is the settling, I guess, for Carl at 43. This is him settling down. So they have Ayana and they have Clarista. So things are not going well. Carl decides that he is going to go to Zephyrhills, Florida for a better life for his family. So he leaves, which all of this is common. This is all very common. This is the kind of thing that happens. It happens now. You move away to find a better life, you call for your family. He goes through Cuba on his way to Zephyrhills, Florida. There, he runs into this apparition, comes to visit with him. The apparition had also visited him in Australia. And so occasionally, apparently, like this ghost wife comes to visit with Carl, which I would think, maybe that's enough for you, but not for Carl. Not for Carl. So she visits with him for like 7 days. There's a big storm and whatever. And then he's finally like, oh, I got to leave Cuba, but he didn't want to leave because all this was happening. He gets to Zephyrhills, Florida. He's not happy, but he's living his life. I think he was there in 1926, calls for the family by 1927. And by that point, Carl is out. He's like, I'm going to move to Key West for better opportunities. So he moves down to Key West and applies at the hospital to be a doctor because he has 9 degrees. Strangely, when you cannot prove that you have 9 degrees, the hospital will not hire you as a doctor. So Carl goes on and he becomes a radiology tech. Like I said, this is 1927. 3 years later, April 22nd, 1930, a beautiful girl walks in. She's got curly hair. She's very pale for reasons that will become very clear soon. And she's come in because she's been coughing. There's a TB outbreak in Key West. TB is fatal. It's not, Key West, I think, is probably not like the fanciest town. And there, if you get it, it's pretty much a death sentence. So she's come through Carl's lab for him to look at her chest to see if that's the case. And she does indeed have TB. But Carl is distraught. He is distraught that this 20-year-old, he is now 53, this 20-year-old is sick because she is the woman in his apparitions. Once again, according to Carl. Note that I continue to say, according to Carl. She is the girl from his apparitions. Now, Carl, if we're unclear, I'm going to point, let's see if I'm pointing the right way. Probably not. Carl, thank you. Carl is a man. Many of us have met men, and I'm not going to give you an all men are like, but I will give you there's a sense of entitlement about Carl. Carl has decided, well, this is the woman that was in my apparition, therefore, she must be mine. Now, let us never mind the fact that this young woman is actually married. So the young woman is actually named Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos. So we'll call her Elena. It's usually how she's referred to. She was born on July 31st, 1909. Her parents, Pancho and I think it's Florencia. I'm going to double check. I want to get this right. Her parents. The first one that we'll probably see first is her in her wedding dress, where she married Luis Mesa. And so she and Luis were married while she was 20. As you can see, she was thought of as like a really excited person. Like she's really bouncy, really excited. People loved her. People loved Elena. She was like a life of a party kind of person. She gets pregnant. She and Luis get pregnant, but she miscarries. When she miscarries, the story is that he leaves her and moves to Miami, where, according to Carl, he says that Elena often looks and is just like, he was once mine and now he is gone. I would like it to be noted throughout this entire story, Luis and Elena never divorce. They are still married. So here is this married young woman coming into Carl's sphere, who's clearly supposed to be his, and she's dying. She is literally coughing up bits and pieces of lung and blood. But he says to himself, that's my girl. So she looks, like I said, this is a death sentence in Key West. But Carl tells the family, hey, I can help you. I can make her better. Because he's got 9 degrees from a place that's never heard of him. So the radiology tech tells the family, this Cuban family that is not like rich at all, tells them that he will help make their daughter better. They don't have a lot, so they say yes. From here, Carl makes lots of visits with Elena. And Elena, he's always constantly, he doesn't quite start professing his love quite yet, but he is often coming to her like in very amorous ways. After a point, he does start to say, hey, I love you. Hey, let's be together, so on and so on. Let's actually look at the other picture. This one, like I said, this first picture is her of her in her wedding gear, and the second one is just her out in the street. So I think it's I'm watching to see it change. Oh, there it is. It's moving really fast. So there she is, dark hair, ringlets, beautiful, 21 soon, like at this point, you know, and he is everywhere. Carl is everywhere. He's constantly there. He is experimenting on her. So he knows mostly electricity, so he wires her up and he wires up her chest, which also means that he's touching her chest regularly to make her better. I'm gonna find this because I just put it down. I know I did. Hold on, I've got it. You know what? I have it here. I wrote it down. Carl actually wrote a memoir. And in his memoir, he says, almost every day I wrote her letters, wherein medical advice was strangely mixed with my love for her. He even admits that it was strange. He mixes it in. Oh, here it is. I'm going to give you just a bit of like one of his letters to her. So he tells her about making sure that she's on top of her medicines and so forth. And then he says, and then too, I am already collecting all the things we're going to need on our wedding trip. Silk dresses for you and a bridal gown, which is all white silk, and all the rest of your trousseau, even lingerie and silver slippers. And last but not least of all, your medicines, like Chinosol and adrenaline, glucose, beef extract, and all the rest. Forever yours, Carl. So basically, Carl is like, oh, I will give you all these beautiful things, lots of money, so on and so on. Also, I'm going to save your life if you're lucky. Carl has money. The idea is that he probably got money from being in the German army. So he would go to the post office regularly and he would get a check. So here he is in Key West, this older white man. Yes, he's German, a thing obviously at the time, but he's got money. And here are this Cuban family, these brown Cuban people trying to live their best life and save their daughter. I think, Jenna, I don't know which picture is next. What do I got? Ha ha! Let us go to the airship. No! Carl's airship is like the symbol for everything that is a shit show about this story. Finds this airship and he parks it on the hospital lawn. And he says he's going to rebuild it and it's going to fly. Please look at this airship. Where do you think it is going? So not only is he rebuilding it, when he meets Elena, he's like, this is yours. This will be for us. We will fly off into an island that I own and we're going to live together. And it's like, sure. Because here's this man who holds her life in his hands as far as she knows. So I cannot currently see what's happening in the chat. So if there's questions, do you see anything? Are there any questions, Jenna? I don't know. So
I'll keep you informed.
Thank you. Keep me informed. So this airship, he works on it forever and ever and ever. He takes her into the cockpit often. They're sitting in the airship. Surprisingly, it never gets off the ground. Who would have thought? Anyway, so he's got the airship. He's got Elena. The family is starting to feel really nervous about what's happening. So they hide her. They hide her in Key West. And I'm telling you, when I first heard this next detail, I was like, oh, clearly the person telling the story is just like exaggerating for effect. No, Carl actually says in his memoir, he went from house to house in Key West looking for her until he found her. And he burst into the room and said he was taking over her, taking care of everything from now on. He was in charge. Carl was in charge. This man, not related to anybody, was in charge. Oh, Carl Safaka. All right, where do we go next? Hold off, don't move to the mausoleum just yet. Okay, so this is about 6 months. It's about 6 months of her life, or rather, what's left of her life. Because like I said before, TB is a death sentence. When they go into hiding, she's also not going back to the hospital for any kind of treatment. So not long after this, she dies. She dies on October 25th, 1931. When she passes away, Carl, of course, rends his garments. He offers to pay for the funeral. The family's like, sure. So puts her in the grave, visits often. And I'd say maybe like a few months go by, and then Carl's like, you know what? I'm afraid she's getting wet. So he builds a mausoleum. And there's, look, I'm doing it right now. I've learned. So the mausoleum looks like a house. He designed it himself. He made sure he paid for it. There is a phone inside the mausoleum in case she needs to call out. You know how that happens. Because sometimes you just need to call from the dead. Hey, Carl, come visit. And every night, Carl would leave work and go and sit with Elena. He was the only person with a key. So there's nothing creepy about that. So he would sit to her every night. And after a point, he claimed that she was singing to him. She sang La Boda Negra, which is a song that means the Black Wedding. And that's what she apparently used to sing to him in life, and now was singing to him in death. So night after night, he's there, she's singing. And at some point, Elena says to Carl, I want to get out of here. And Carl's like, this makes sense. So April, I'm going to make sure I get this absolutely right because it's lovely. April 1933, Carl makes a plan. Now, at this point, I don't know how to say this. At this point, Carl is actually living with Elena's family. Once she died, he said that he would live there and pay them $5 a month in her room, smelling her pillow nightly. So he lives with them. I feel like this is another one of those things of like money, I guess. So now, as much of a shit show as Carl is, he does say in his memoir that the family does not care for him. Though he does say at some point that the mother came around. Did she? Probably not. So anyway, what's it? What'd you say? Yeah, probably. She's like, she came around to that $5 a month. She was like, all right, cool, I guess so. So he makes a plan. He goes in. Carl is now, he's like 55 at this point. He's not a spring chicken. As we saw earlier, he's not like the bulked up man, but he's got the plan. Waits until after dark, goes in, undoes the screws on the whole casket situation. Well, I guess it's like the crypt or whatever it is. And then Candace's like, nope. So he takes the casket out. It takes him forever, obviously, because he's not great at this. Takes the casket out, puts it on a wagon, and wheels it through the cemetery in the middle of the night. Now, there's a fence. On the other side of the fence, Carl has rented a space because he knows where he's going. He gets the casket up, and I'm very sorry, this is happening. I'm saying it to you. He gets the casket up, and it kind of opens. She's been in there for like 18 months, and a little bit of Elena gets on Carl. She actually like spills onto him because she's at this point liquefied. She gets her, what is it?
Liquid at this point.
She's liquid. She cannot rest, but she is liquid. Sure, Carl. Sure, motherfucker. So gets her over the fence, gets her into the house. He doesn't have running water in the house, so he cleans himself with, can you hold up your little can, Megan? He cleans himself with whiskey. So he doesn't clean himself with whiskey. Surprisingly, a dead woman who leaks on you smells. So he's trying to clean himself up. It's the middle of the night. He doesn't want too many questions, so he leaves the body there and goes back to the Hoyos' home. Stays the night, goes back, cleans her up, wraps her in cord. You know we're not even there yet. And you're already shaking your head. I know.
It's bad.
He wraps her in the coroner's, like the coroner's wax, and like slowly starts to put her together. Gets the body into, I can't remember how he does this, but he gets the body into the airship. Gets the body back to the hotel, to the hospital, into the airship. And he keeps her there for a while. But he realizes he can't keep her there forever. So he asks a taxi driver to help him get the airship from the hospital to his lab, his new lab on the beach. So I believe this is the picture. Did I skip ahead?
What's an airship?
Oh, the airship is that hot mess that he was just like, I'm gonna fix it, it's gonna fly.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't going anywhere. Just hold on, Candace, hold on. So he's got this laboratory, and he's decided that he's gonna fix her up. He puts her in basically like an incubation chamber. And there's like all kinds of liquids and things flowing in and out. This is like Dr. Frankenstein's dream here. There are also 13 dogs in this place, you know, just to keep people out. And he's there for quite some time. But I want to make sure I get this right. 1936, the WPA comes in, because it's that time. WPA comes in and they're cleaning off the beach. So he's got to move. So he finds a place on Flagler. So to move from the beach to Flagler, he asks Elena's brother-in-law to help him move. Elena's brother-in-law moves her body from this beach to a house and does not know that he is moving his family. Sets her up in the house. Now, once she's in the house, he's like, hey, you can live in the bed. He dresses her in a wedding gown. Every time something falls off or changes, he replaces it. The eyes, of course, are going to go because she's in decomp. So he gets her glass eyes. I'm so sorry, Megan. This is when Megan stops talking to me and our friendship is over. So,
well, this is like the fourth time I've heard this story. So.
I know, but I'm also doing it in public this time.
It's never going.
It never gets better.
It gets better.
Her arm, because you know she's rigor mortis, her arm is like in place. He rigs it so that it was like he's got like a rig of some sort, so he can slowly start to pull it into the shape that he wants it in. Then you never know, Candace, it never gets better. Then after he's done that, he also, like I said, he constantly wraps her in this coroner's wax. So it's like this silky stuff that he completely starts to reform her face. He got her a wig. He made a wig out of her hair. Anytime anything falls off, he replaces it. He lives with this body for 7 years. Since I'm going all out, why not? There are times when he talks about like them having date nights and them sharing dinner and wine. To drink the wine, Carl takes it into his mouth. He kisses Elena, passes it to her, and that is them drinking wine. 7 years. 7 years. At some point, that gets back to the family because this is Key West, and I suspect that Key West is very much like New Orleans at this time, like a kind of like a small townish kind of feel, even though it's a city. And so everyone kind of knows everyone, and everyone knows the eccentric German count who is living there. Carl is also, when the WPA comes in, he's also lost his job, so he's got nothing but time to spend with her. So the family gets wind that something's not quite right. A boy had gone past the house and saw Carl dancing with what looked like a big doll. So Nanya, Florinda, who was Elena's sister, starts to ask questions. She tells Carl to meet her at the cemetery. Meets him at the cemetery. She's like, hey, Carl, I'm gonna need you to open this mausoleum. He's like, no, I can't do that. She's like, Carl, I need to know, is my sister there? Because here's the thing about crazy ass Carl. He would go night after night, but then once he's got the body, he's not going anymore. So it's already suspicious that he's not visiting. He's like, I want to see my sister. And he goes, you know what? Let me help you. They go back to his house. They open the door, and there is her sister on the bed. Her reconstructed sister who died 9 years ago. So I think there is actually a picture of this. To me is one of the saddest things that I've seen. And we'll get to why the story matters so much to me a little bit later. But she says to him, Nanya says, hey, if you just go to the police, if you just let me have her body, I won't go to the police, everything will be fine. He says, I can't let you do that. So obviously Nanya goes to the police. They come, they arrest him. This is 1940. It is a huge deal. It is a massive story. It is everywhere. New York Times, Miami Herald, everywhere. This is a huge story in 1940, where some other things were happening. He goes on trial. Her body is actually set out for people to view. 6,800 people come and they view her body on display. It's never explained why. There's a couple of other things that are never explained why. The fact that most of her family died of TB. Nanya actually dies not long after this of TB. Carl lived in the house, but somehow or another never catches it because apparently evil does not catch TB. So thank you. This is one of the newspaper clippings. I went on newspaper.com today. Thank the lovely people at the New York Public Library who are making everything easy for us. So this headline, for 7 years he slept with his mummy sweetheart, very common. The idea that not only was this wasn't a crazy thing to people. This was like he was in love. This old man was in love with, and that's why he was keeping her alive. That was the story that went around. Trial happens. They ask him, hey, did you interfere with the body? He says no. Carl's a liar. He says no, he's never interfered with the body. And the charges eventually get dropped because the charges are actually about him interfering with the grave, not dealing with the body. And that, therefore, the statute of limitations have passed. So Carl gets off. Then this motherfucker, and I'm saying, what did you say? Oh, I didn't say that. You said it. You said it.
You opened the door. I
did. I opened the door. Oh, that was good. That really impressed with you. So proud. So proud. This motherfucker has the nerve, the audacity, the absolute fucking audacity to ask the judge, can he keep the body? The judge, of course, goes, no. So poor Elena's body there's thoughts that she was separated and buried in different places inside the cemetery. Basically, the idea was that she wasn't supposed, they were finding ways to keep Carl away. But then there's also stories of him somehow or another getting her body later. He now has no job. People do come through and he makes money by them looking at the airship and giving tours about what's happening around him. Throughout this entire time, Carl is still married to Doris, who is still living in Zephyr Hills. His daughter dies at some point and he stops sending the money. She's like, hey, can you come? Because our daughter died. And he's like, no, I'm really busy with my dead wife. I can't be bothered. So, but Doris, who clearly has a heart of fucking gold, when he comes back, he moves away from Key West to Pasco County, which is not far from Zephyr Hills. She basically takes care of him. She makes sure that he has food and he has some money. God bless her. I don't know why. When Carl leaves, though, the mausoleum mysteriously blows up. The thought is that he probably planted a bomb, but no one could prove it. But the mausoleum blew up not long after he left. So He lives out his life there. 1947 is when Carl writes his memoir for Fantastic Adventures. So that's where all the good memoirs go. Fantastic Adventures, the comic magazine. I have read this. I have a copy of it. It is fantastic. Yes. And it is all from Carl's point of view. He lives till he lives till 1952, July 3rd, 1952. His body is found. There are various ways that people say this body is found. Some say that he was, found behind an organ, like a playing organ that someone found him. Some say that he was found in the arms of a wax figure that he had made that looked like Elena from like one of the death masks that he had made of her. And some people were just like, oh, he just died. But that's what happened. He was there. His wife actually doesn't die until 1977. Yeah, so she held out. She held out. But so that's the basics. A few years later, this is for Megan. A few years later, after his death, there's a claim that these doctors went and did an autopsy. And Carl, as you remember from the trial, said, hey, I never interfered with that body. But they looked inside and there was a paper tube. Inside the paper tube, they found remnants of semen. Megan, you're missing it. You're missing it, Megan. She loves that motion. She loves it. So
I was myself.
You can never prepare. Those are the basics of the story. Now, there are a lot of things about this story that interest me, and I know that I have a hard time keeping my opinion out of it because it's actually infuriating. Did I go through all the pictures? Oh, I did. I didn't think I did. Great. One of the things that
you did, everyone.
I'm so proud. Thank you. I'd like to thank my memory. We're usually not on the same boat, like on the same page, but thank you for being there with me today. I did all the pictures. Great. So one of the things that first gets to me is that Carl, like I mentioned before, Carl is an older gentleman. Gentleman is really kind on my part, but he's older, he's got money, he's white. He might be German, and that, like I said, is also an issue with the time from World War I on. People are, it's not always like the people always fall out of favor with whoever fighting, and that was the case. But in this case, I'm willing to bet money, and I am a poor woman. You can ask the fine people over at Great Lakes how much money I owe them. They know I don't have any, but I am willing to bet money that if Elena had been blonde with blue eyes, this never would have happened. It was perfectly fine that people saw him chasing this young woman around in her, she's dying, and no one stopped it. I also find that this was the last few months of her life that he took from her. He took everything from her. Her last, like the time that she had with her family before she died, he took her death. She couldn't even die in peace. He literally just ripped it away from her. And the thing is that everyone calls it love. This is what we think love is. When people look at like romantic comedies and they're just like, this is what's love. This is not love. This is his obsession. There's a person that Megan and I know, and I won't name names, but Megan and I know, when we'll talk about it later. When I expressed the story to them, they were like, oh, well, he was probably mentally ill. But that's not an excuse. That's not an excuse to take someone's life. So these are the things that draw me to this story. So there is this book. It's gonna be backwards, I'm sure, because of the way it is. But Undying Love, as you can see, I've got all my little tabbies, by Ben Harrison. Ben Harrison is, if you look at Show and Tell's, our Instagram, Show and Tell actually has an Instagram account. you'll note that I mentioned Ben Harrison. Ben Harrison is a writer who lives in Key West, and he basically did some research on this and wrote this book, Undying Love. And he also made a play. He made a musical about it that went up 2018, I believe. Candace says lots of people who are mentally ill do not kidnap dying women and steal their corpses. That is true. That is very true. It is not like, I don't think that that's like a thing that's in the DSM. I was mentally ill. No, I don't think that's what happens.
Why a musical?
What? So I have read bits and pieces of Undying Love because it is not like a reference book for me. This is a big, for me, this is a big story. It's something I've been working on for a while. And it is a reference book for me. And I'm sure Mr. Harrison is a lovely man, but every version of this story, which we'll get to that word in just a second, but every version of this story that I have read or listened to, except one, have all been about this great love affair. Even Undying Love allows for Carl to have his say. If you go on Wikipedia and you look up Elena de Hoyos, you won't get an entry for her. You'll get an entry for Carl, and her name is in there. Everything. He took everything, even her legacy. He took everything from her. The fact that it is called a story is also a problem for me. A story indicates that, there's a remove, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But this is actually about a woman. This is about her life and what was taken. Not, if we put it in context of time, right before she gets this diagnosis, her husband leaves because she miscarries. She's already suffered 2 losses. And then here comes Carl, constantly there, constantly on top. Oh, Megan disappeared. Is she gone? Is she gone? She couldn't take it. Oh, there we go. Oh, I see part of you, and I see my chest. Oh, yes. Is she gone? Oh, Megan could not take it. Understandable. Understandable. She will probably come back, and we will continue to chat until then. That's good. I can see your head in my chest. Uh, okay, just the top of my head. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Oh, is she back? Is she back? Hello. There she is.
Sorry.
Hello. It's the cat skills. It's the cat
No,
skills.
it's my foot and my. I'm constantly unplugging my old ass computer that can't function without being plugged in.
It's fine. It's fine. We're just talking about men stealing your soul. So it's
do you hope that as someone who kind of would like to think there's an afterlife or something, hearing that story, you're like, God, I hope there isn't one.
I imagine that if there was something like her soul was constantly tethered to him for at least 9 years. And I hope, as a person who's just like, I don't know what happens after you die. For Carl, I honestly hope it involves a lot of hot pokers in every possible orifice. He, at every point in his life, he treated women like crap. He calls it loves, and he treats Elena like crap. His wife doesn't look like what he thinks she should look like, so he doesn't bother with her. He doesn't go to visit his daughter when she dies. Like he cuts them off once he needs to make all this money to keep this dead body alive.
Well, it's narcissism too, because everything is in relation to him. Every woman in his life is in service to him, including Elena. And it's not about love. It's about him and how he feels, and that it's that she's an object and a property, and that's how, I mean, with the way the court case went, like they validated everything he did because it was all about him.
The sad thing is it is still being done that way.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's like, how is it any different than now? And it's not. We're
So the versions that I hear about now, because I listen to podcasts, obviously, because I live in Brooklyn. So the podcasts are always, there's always like a ha-ha thing about like, this is crazy, right? Ha-ha. I mean, even here, we have some laughs about it. The one place that I didn't get that vibe was from a podcast called The Dollop. And it's actually two guys. And they call out how disgusting each step of the way that Carl is, like writing her letters, and he's just like, "Your darling Carl," and then she signs back, "Your friend Elena de Hoyos." Like, she's very clear that this shit ain't happening, dude. But he's on it, and on it. Yeah, I can't. Every time I think about it, it makes me angry. It makes me really angry, and I find that, like, when I think about it, so this is not like an announcement, but I will say that soon I will have another show, because I clearly have no respect for my self-care, and it'll be like a once a month show where we look at romantic comedies. And I have deep feelings about romantic comedies, in that they are messages that are given to us, like how we're supposed to love and how we're supposed to treat most times, the opposite sex. How women are supposed to be loved, and men take those same messages. They pretend like they don't, but they take those same messages. And all of those messages are here. All of those messages are here. If he loves you, you must love him back. You've only got two choices. Like,
well, if you
really?
look at a gift, you should be so grateful. You should be so thankful.
He spent money,
Yeah.
When men spend money.
Yeah, he's a doctor.
He says he's a doctor.
He looks great.
He knows how to work electricity. So he's got 13 dogs. How could you say no to this? Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
But it is entitlement to the length of that he inserted himself in every possible way in every aspect of her life. I mean, right down to moving into her family home.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, did he even ask? But it's entitlement thinking. Like, with people that have so much entitlement, they just believe they have access to everything, and it doesn't matter who or where or what. And it's like, he just made himself have an all access pass.
I will tell you, he did not ask. He actually says in his memoir that he walked in and said, "This is what's happening." Here's the other really fucked up part about this. Most of our information about what happened comes from Carl's memoir. That is like the first place people go for information. And he's a very unreliable narrator. There are times when you can see that he's telling the truth, but most times they all make Carl look better.
Well, the fact that he's an unreliable narrator, but also that he is so confident that what he did was right, that he felt that he could write a memoir about it, talk about it, admit to the things he did, and be totally justified in that.
Yeah. Yes. And you know what? He was right. That's the disturbing part, was he was right. People went along with it. And they're like, "This is love." He was right. So you've heard my teriology speech. He was the first one that he's he still looks like a psycho. That's because he was. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is when people write their own narrative. Carl definitely writes his own narrative. Like the beginning seasons of I find to be the most interesting because, and I would say it's not too far off from the time, because Don Draper writes his own narrative. Carl writes his own narrative. Terrence Howard writes his own narrative. Oftentimes, occasionally it's women, but most times it's men. When they are not happy with the world as they see it, they rewrite it. It's harder to do now because, you know, we have the internet and you can always check on something, but, you know, though somehow or another Terrence Howard still does it.
Though, where it's like people don't even care that, I mean, like, because you can find anything on the internet that will back up the point you want to make.
Yeah.
So there's like a brashness in creating your own narrative too, because also with that, it's, and I find particularly when men rewrite the narrative and are writing their own narrative, it's always casting themselves as the hero, and then a lot of times casting themselves as the flawed hero. So
Yeah.
then it's like, then you want to be sympathetic towards them and see how they worked their way out of it. So then they're even a greater hero.
Yes. So Candace says they rewrite it and they're allowed to. Women are not allowed to, by and large. That is true. By and large, we're not. It's always like that thing. So like Candace, people know I've done the foray into the dating world. And so there's always that that whole thing of like, that woman is crazy. You don't want to do this thing because you're going to come off crazy. But that crazy often comes from that man rewriting what happened. And you're looking at the text and you're looking at the emails and you're just like, but this is what I saw. And he's like, no, that's not what you saw. You're crazy. So Candace says, in fact, one of the most common ways of shaming and constraining women is to recover and reveal their story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're not allowed to disappear into the background. Everything that we do is thrown into relief and to make us fit someone else's narrative. Obviously, these are very broad brushes, but you know what? It's a Friday. I like a broad brush on Friday.
It's our show, so there's only so much you can do, Karen.
Exactly. It's an hour-long show, and I'm gonna solve gender inequality right here, right now. We're doing it. So buckle up, bitches. It's happening.
You're creating a paint by numbers. Everyone else can fill it in later.
Thank you. We will talk about, so I see what Candace is writing, and this is me currently ignoring that because we will talk about it later. All right, so we're here towards the end of the hour, and I've got to do the things because we have like official things now, and so I've got to do them officially. Hold please while I read with my glasses on. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, there's no so much, I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us on Show and Tell on the Pop Culture Co-op. If you love our content, please be sure you are following us on all our, not all, I just edit as I go, I'm sorry. On our social handles at Pop Culture Co-op. Follow us here on Twitch and subscribe. You can also help us financially by becoming a subscriber, buying and using bits, and by sending money to our PayPal, which is at Pop Co-op. I did not know that. Don't miss our other programming coming up. Here's the thing. We have shows coming up. That's not even a joke. In an hour, as in like you get up, you go get a drink and maybe a snack, and then you come back. In an hour is Big Time with Ashley and Dara. They discuss fat culture, and it will be amazing because it always is. On Saturday, Maddie is with us at 7:00 doing theater games. And on Sunday, Dara is making a change. 5:00 on Sunday is the BFI show. The British Film Institute Top 100. Dara is watching two movies per week. This one, I think these two are Madame de Earrings of Madame de something. I looked it up and I still can't remember how to say it. And then the Imitation of Life there's two versions of Imitation of Life. This is the more current version with Lana Turner. And Mahalia Jackson at the end. I know this because Imitation of Life was one of the first VHSs that I owned. I think I still actually own it, and I do have a VCR because I live in Brooklyn. All right. So once again, Megan, tell the people where they can find you.
Find me?
Yes. Where can they find you? If they were like, oh my God, Megan has changed my life, where can I follow her?
Really just on Instagram at Megan Hill, no H, and Jan Hill, what? At Megan Hill, what? And or my website at meganhill.net.
I'm putting it in. Why is it not going? Oh, because that's why I did it.
I the mountains, where I'm a mountain woman now, a mountain hermit.
I like to think that your website is just now you and like pioneer woman ideas. Like you're like, yes, I distilled the water from this plant and we will drink for hours.
I'm like Grizzly Adams.
Okay.
I feel like I'm Grizzly Adams. I'm like letting my beard come in. I stack wood. I pickle.
Oh, you were already pickling before you left. Don't.
I've started making my own beef jerky though.
Oh,
it's really good.
You are here soon. I don't eat that much beef, but it's jerky. It'll hold. So, you can find the show at Show and Tell PPC, and you can actually. I'm doing this for once. This is what happens. You can actually see stuff. That's why I wear my glasses. You can follow me at Karen Trinice. Technically, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, but I only tweet when like something big has happened, like I'm watching a debate. So you can do that, but it'll be interesting for no one.
I put out a twat.
I loved putting out twats. I put them out of my house around 7:00 in the morning. Get out, twat. So I don't. But you can, but I occasionally have a great moment and I'm like, yeah, I can do this in 140 characters or less. Not that often. You can follow me on Facebook, but that is a fool's errand because I'm never on Facebook. I don't enjoy arguing with people for no reason. So then I like to argue with people for a reason. But the best place to find me is on Instagram because that is where I go when I'm procrastinating on the things I should be doing. So I'm there a lot. So yeah, I think that we have covered all the things. We are done on time. Thank you to our producer, Jenna, who made this happen. Thank you so much. Thank you all for... Oh yes, thank you, Candace. It is PCC, not PPC, because it's Pop Culture Co-op. I can spell. I learned that. So close. Next time maybe. And so next time for you as well. I think actually the next time that we do this will be Golden Girls. We'll be talking about the Golden Girls with my friend Kevin. So see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.